Welcome back. Michelle Riley from Notaries for Alabama, coming back to you after a short break to finish the series of videos I've been recording about Alabama's new Notary Accountability Act of 2023. This new law goes into effect in 15 days on September 1, 2023. Notaries around the state that are already commissioned will have a new set of standards and instructions and obligations to follow. And those notaries who are brand new or renewing their commissions will have an entirely new process to follow. It's really exciting times for notaries in the state. Um, this evening, I will be talking about remote notarization. This will probably be much shorter than the other videos that I've recorded as part of the Accountability Act. There's just, I think, less to say about it, but we will cover that this evening. And then expect to see from me a live uh, YouTube where I go back to the beginning, forward, doing a quick overview, and include changes that have taken place since we last got together here on YouTube. So really exciting things. I thought about sharing them with you this evening, but I want to make sure I keep this in order. If this is the first of my videos that you've watched, please go back and watch the others. I think there's a total of 6 or 7. The very first one I did was a live where I introduced the new law to you. And then after that, I did recorded videos, one on the new notary application, fee and notary bond. The next one being on the mandatory background check that notaries will have to pass in order to be commissioned. The next one covered mandatory notary training. And by the way, there's a way for us to get a preview of that training course. And then the next one is titled Notary Standards. And then I did 2 called Unlawful Notary Acts Parts 1 and 2. So that brought us to this point. I've already covered the major law provisions. This evening, the focus is on remote notarization. Yeah, so let's get started. All right, so a lot was not mentioned in the new law about remote notarization, but it was included. And so I thought it would be wise to mention it again, especially because here lately, for some reason, I'm getting more and more questions from notaries who want to perform remote notarizations. But what concerns me is that they are investing time and money into buying into RON platforms, remote online notarization platforms that are not approved for Alabama. And so if you are a commissioned notary who has been eager to perform remote notarizations, I hope you will stick around and hear this segment. So back in 2019, during COVID, Governor Kay Ivey did authorize all commissioned notaries to perform a type of remote notarization. And that was, of course, because of the pandemic. It was part of an emergency proclamation that would allow commerce and business to move forward. And then in 2021, an actual law, the notary law, was updated to say even though the pandemic is subsiding, the state saw value in continuing Alabama's version of remote notarization. I can't stress enough that Alabama has its own type of remote notarization. It is very different from the type of remote notarization that notaries in Texas perform, different from what notaries in Florida perform, different from what notaries in Virginia perform. It's different, folks. Although I did hear just today, I believe Texas may have approved a type of remote notarization similar to ours. But still, let's look at Alabama's requirements together, and it's on the screen. I'd like for you to get in the habit of calling it remote ink notarization. It is not RON, R-O-N, it is RIN, R-I-N. And with RIN notarization, the signer, the customer, their signature must be original wet ink. That means, yes, they have to sign their name. There is no electronic signature. Moreover, in Alabama, the signer must show you, the notary, 2 forms of government issue identification, not just one, which is required for a traditional in-person notarization, but 2. The next requirement is that the notary obtain information from public, private databases and then pose questions to the signer, prompting them to answer correctly to reassure the notary that they are, in fact, who they say they are. So there are 3 methods that an Alabama notary has to verify the signer's identity. Government issue ID 1, government issue ID 2, and then just for lack of better word, knowledge-based authentication questions, okay? All right, so there's that for the signer responsibilities. For the notary's responsibility, our signature must be wet and original. We cannot sign the form and fax it anywhere. We cannot use e-signature. It must be wet and original. Moreover, we must, for our seal, our official seal, we must use our embosser or an ink stamp seal, not an electronic seal. And again, we have to be able to obtain information about the signer that a criminal, an imposter would not know. or would not readily know, and then pose those questions to the signer, make sure it's a match before we proceed with the notarization. The next requirement deals with the platforms. Alabama has not approved us to use a RON, remote online notarization platform. And I won't get into right now why that is. Alabama, however, outlines its stipulations in the laws. And it says it can be any type of video conference application, similar to a Zoom, WebEx, GoToMeeting. They don't mention these, but the law states the notarization must be recorded and that the notary and the signer must be able to see one another and hear one another. And so that's why I have on the slide Zoom, GoToMeeting, WebEx, and there are more. There are a lot more. But what you don't see up there are names of the RON platforms, and that is because when I did my investigation, preparing to conduct this type of notarization, I interviewed and vetted the most well-known remote online notarization companies, platforms, vendors, and their platforms did not comply with Alabama's requirements. Okay, so this is really important. So forbidden items, RON platforms that require you, the notary, to use e-certificates, e-signatures, and e-seals. Those aren't approved for us. Don't invest your time and money in platforms that would be considered illegal for you to use. All right. So one reason why I think our lawmakers revisited remote notarization, again, this is me just guessing here, is there has been more emphasis on voting, and our remote notarization laws are clear, crystal clear, that we notaries must not, cannot, shall not notarize anything pertaining to voting remotely. And so I have listed here absentee ballot applications, absentee ballot affidavit, and so I said, you know what, in case there's something else out there I don't know about, anything related to voting, do not do it if you are performing remote notarizations. All right, you can get into a heap of trouble if you do. Now, I learned something this week, 1 or 2 days ago, and I'll talk more about it later when I do the wrap up of all of these changes, is that Alabama did something. Thank you, whoever did it. They have created a special notarial certificate for remote notarizations in Alabama. I have always thought, I started doing these back in 2019, and even then I said, you know what, it would make sense to me if when I notarize something remotely, that there is evidence that it was done remotely and not in person. keep in mind these notarizations were using ink, and so there's no a probate judge, the clerk's office, they would not know that there's a recording of this transaction, and how great it would be if a document that needed to be recorded uh, was questioned, its authenticity or validity was questioned, for the clerk or probate judge or a lawyer to see that, hey, this notarization was done remotely. That means there is a recording, an audio and a visual recording of it, and reach out to the notary. So that is something that, again, I will share in a future video. But this is all I wanted to cover with you today. I did not see any other tweaks or changes to how remote notarizations are performed in Alabama. Now, I get this question asked of me quite a bit, Michelle, when will Alabama change its remote notarization law so that it's like the other states, so that we are on a platform where the signer scans in or takes a picture of their ID and uploads their form? And I know it sounds so exciting. I don't know. I am surprised that it hasn't been changed as of yet. I do think it's coming sooner than later. Um, but that's a question that you can ask your state representative, because they have discussed it for several years, but it has not passed or been voted on to my knowledge. Um, so as we wrap it up, I just want to go to one other slide. If you are a commissioned notary, Alabama notary, and you are still very interested in performing this type of notarization, I wanted to include some resources. First of all, you can download a copy of Alabama's newest notary law that goes into effect September 1st. By going to the Alabama Secretary of State's website. You'll find it there, or at least a link to it there. Keep in mind, I did download the actual law that Governor Ivey signed off on, and I posted it on my training website. You can download a copy for free, of course, by going to trainalabama.com. And when you get there, you will also see right next to it a link that invites you to participate in live Zoom meetings where notaries discuss the upcoming changes, and it'll give you an opportunity to ask questions. All right, so that's how you get a copy of the notary law. That includes the remote notarization section. Another resource for you to consider, I did a YouTube video about Alabama's remote notarization law about 2 years ago. It is out on YouTube. Excuse me, you can click the link. If that doesn't work for you, and I should have typed it on here, I'm sorry. I have a YouTube channel called Notaries for Alabama. Just go there and look for the video on remote notarization. You can also visit one of my websites called alabamaremotenotary.com. You'll be able to download a copy of the remote notarization law. And there's some, I think, frequently asked questions that are answered on that page, as well as some additional information. Um, I have been asked numerous times to do a training class on remote notarizations in Alabama, how to perform RENs and comply with all of the requirements, because it ain't easy, folks. Um, when you read the law, you'll see there is a script we must follow. The maintaining of records, the obtaining information from public private database. There's costs associated with that. So I am close to being able to conduct a class. I am going to do a, um, what do you call it? Is a trial. I have someone who will be the, you know what I'm trying to say. And that way I'll work out the kinks with her, and then I will announce that class, because again, it looks like we're going to have it for a little while longer, and you will want to make sure that you are adhering to all of the requirements, because again, after September 1st, it is imperative that we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's and adhering to every aspect of our notary laws. Yes, I will include links down below if you have questions. If you're interested in being contacted about the training class, when it's offered, you can just put your information below saying you are interested, or send me a email and I will make sure that I do that. I appreciate your time. Again, it's an exciting time to be an Alabama notary. Thanks for checking in. Wishing you all the best, and I'll see you next time.